anytime, through connecting to all the shmuzin and reading the books. It's an unbelievable schus that we have him here. Now we're in the middle of Elzman, and we're full swing the first week, and all of us are looking to connect HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We know Melech Basod, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is near us, and Avada, we have the opportunity to be mechazik and learning, and tefillah, and becoming close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Someone told me a story just an hour or two ago, that there was somebody that was jet skiing 2 weeks ago. There was someone was jet skiing 2 weeks ago in the ocean, and he fell off his jet ski, and his jet ski went flying, and he was floating in the ocean, and it started getting dark, and they have these laws that once it gets dark, they're not allowed to search. There was a father of 7 kids, and the helicopters went, searched for him, and they couldn't find him, and he was floating. It was getting darker and darker, and he was floating with his life as the middle of the ocean. He realized that his time's coming. So you remember that he heard somebody said there's a segula that you should, when you're in a makom sakana, you should start thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for everything you have. So he started going through his mind, thinking HaKadosh Baruch Hu for his wife, for his children, for his parnasa, and while for a few minutes he was mamish min shabach HaKadosh Baruch Hu for everything, appreciating everything that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave him. And right when he was finished, a helicopter came on top of him, shined the light, and pulled him up. So they brought him back to the shore. His family was waiting for him there. And they said, what happened? So he says, you should know that we finished. We were looking for you for already an hour and a half. And we finished and we landed. And we asked your wife to show us a picture of you. So he showed a picture and they saw that it was a Jewish person. And he said, the pilot said that we know that the Jews are connected to God. And he's probably out there praying, because the Jews pray, and if he prays, he probably has a bigger chance of being found. Wow. So he took another flight in the middle of the night to go search for him, and they found him. So we see what a Kiddush Hashem it is. But the side is that we're now in Elzman, Melech Basada, we have the opportunity to come close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through tefillah, and through coming close, through learning, and be mechazik. So, Amet Hashem, Rav Daniel, we mechazik us, Binyane Elul, and tefillah, and Torah, and we should all be
ready to go home. I'm happy. Very nice.
Okay, thank you very much, Dovi, for giving me this opportunity to speak to this Chashav Olam, LEIL SHISHI. I don't know if I ever spoke at a LEIL SHISHI before. I don't know if it didn't make it, to the 5 towns. It hasn't really made big inroads. LEIL SHISHI. But I assume it has something to do with Shabbos, right? LEIL SHISHI. Maybe we'll talk a little bit about Shabbos. We'll talk about Chodesh Elul. If I could begin by sharing with you an amazing marsha on Parsha Shoftim that one of the Chaverim mentioned. I already spoke about this week, but it's a good starting point. At the end of the Parsha, we have the episode of Egla Rufa, where if you find a dead body and you don't know who the Roitzeach was, so you do this procedure and you measure to the closest city. And the Ziknei Bezdin, basically they wash their hands and they say, this is not our fault. We're not responsible for this. It's not. So Chazal say, what we thought the Bezdin killed the guy? Why do they have to say we're not responsible? So the Gemara in Saita says on Daf Mem Hey that they say we never sent the guy away without Levaya. We didn't send him away without accompanying him. In other words, if we would have known that he was in the city, we certainly would have accompanied him, and then he would have been protected, but we didn't know he was there, or even if we did know, we did accompany. It's not our fault, because we fulfilled our responsibility of accompanying the guy. We know there's the Mitzvah of Leva, So Marsha wants to know, what exactly does Levaya do? I mean, the guy, he has to get home. His route is through Gaza. He ate in your house in Bnei Brak. So you're telling me that because you accompany him 4 Amos in Bnei Brak, he would have been protected in Gaza, and now that he didn't accompany him the 4 Amos, now he's not protected in Gaza? I mean, what does 4 Amos do? It seems like just a symbolic gesture. By the way, I just tell you, my Pepe, everyone tells me these divrei Torah and what they saw in the Parsha sheet about Levaya, all these beautiful pshatim. Who says it? I don't know, somebody made it up and they wrote it in the Parsha sheet. You need to know who says things. You can't just say nice, cute ideas because they make you feel good. Judaism is based on Torah. Torah means Rishonim, Achronim, Gemaras, Chazal, not like, nice one-liners, they're good as one-liners, but that's not part of the religion. The religion is the Torah. So there has to be There has to be a basis for it. And by the way, I'm just telling you my own thing. I heard a great Dvar Torah. Who says it? I can't remember. What do you mean you can't remember? So you already forgot 90% of the Dvar Torah. 90% of it is who says it. Where exactly is it? What's the source of it? It's not about how it makes me the vibe of the Dvar Torah. It's about the legitimacy of the Dvar. Anyway, I'm just telling. I'm a guest. I can say whatever I want. Anyway.
Keep going. Who says that?
What? Who says that? I'll tell you. Good. Very good. Good. The answer is. Let me answer. Yeah. I only spoke twice so far in LA, and I thought it was like, a live, let live kind of place. I'm getting more contention here in the last 30 minutes already. It's all a facade, the live and let live. That's until you say something, by the way, the billboard on the way in was the most innocuously, you're going to hear this, the most innocuous anti-Semitic billboard I ever saw in my entire life.
Yeah, it said, don't cry.
It has a picture of Trump and Bibi, that Trump said Bibi never wanted peace. How do you put up with that? It's like there's Strummer over here. Really? Yeah, take it down. Okay. Okay, but I want to answer that question. It's very late at night for me. That's the only reason. I'm a Glatstein guy usually. Okay, but who says it? Lamali Kras Svarahu. There's something called common sense. Okay, so Marsha says like this. Marsha says, what does Levaya do? He says certainly it's a davar skulia. It's a skula to accompany somebody. But what's the mechanism of the skula? It's incredible words of the Marsha. The Marsha says, you invited the guy to your house. You can't walk him home. You have your own life. You have to move on with your own life. But if you walk the guy 4 amos, you're showing what your ratzain is. Your ratzain is to protect the guy. Now you can't walk the guy all the way home. He has to do his thing. You have to do your thing. But your ratzain has been established. You want to protect the guy. Now you're a good guy. You're a God-fearing guy. So Hashem sees your ratzain, and then Hashem activates the process of ratzain yireyav Yasa. In other words, Hashem sees you want to protect him. You accompany him 4 amos. So now that you accompany 4 amos, Hashem will then send his messengers to protect the guy through the mechanism of Ritzoin Yireyav Yasa. And I think this is very central to Chodesh Elul. What in the world does it have to do with Elul? Why do you have to walk him 4 amos? You're sitting in your house. You don't want him to get hurt. You obviously want him to be protected. That's why you walked him the 4 amos. So save yourself the few seconds, save yourself the 4 amos, and just activate Ritzoin Yireyav Yasa by wanting him to be protected. The answer is that you need to establish with Maisa what your Ratzain is. Once you establish with a small act what your Ratzain is, then you're eligible for great Siyata D'Shmai. You can't just sit back and want. You have to act, you have to show, you have to demonstrate what you want. Once you demonstrate what you want, then the Rebbeinu Shalom kicks in great Siyata D'Shmai. There's an amazing line in the Sefer Shari Chuva. In Shari Chuva, Shar Aleph, Rabbeinu Yearning is Mechadesh, that even though, according to the Rambam, there are 3 or 4 basic ingredients in Chuva, Aziva Sachet, Charata, Vidoy, Rabbeinu Yearning says that still Chuva is like detergent. If you really want to cleanse the sin, you need other ingredients. Rabbeinu Yearning is Mechadesh, there are 20 ingredients in like a complete Chuva. That's a Chiddush of Rabbeinu Yearning. Okay. One of the ingredients Rabbeinu Yearning says is Shviras HaTaiva. Shviras HaTaiva, which is a very foreign concept in 2025. Who ever heard of such a thing, of Shviras HaTaiva? But there is an idea that part of the tshuva process is to withdraw to some degree, ever so slightly, from immersion in taiva. So even if it means just a little bit less, a little bit more discipline, that is a key ingredient in tshuva. Says Rabbeinu Yearning, why is it part of tshuva? Listen to these words of Rabbeinu Yearning. Rabbeinu Yearning is a rishain, okay? This is not a parsha sheet, these are the words of a rishain. Okay? There's a very big difference. Every word is measured and calculated and gold. Says Rabbeinu Yearning, by withdrawing a little bit from taiva, megala ratzain lashov. You're revealing that you want to do tshuva. What do you mean you're revealing you want to do tshuva? We're talking about tshuva. Since when is there a concept, a status of wanting to do tshuva? I thought there are people who do tshuva and people who don't do tshuva. Now we're learning there is a category of wanting to do tshuva, and that is very valuable. Says Rabbi Meir, by withdrawing a little bit from immersion in this world, you're showing the Ribbon Hashem your ratzain, and demonstrating with action your ratzain is very powerful. It's a way to access great siyata d'shmaya. So, what I really want to talk about is talking about the subject lately of tzipis l'Yeshua, of yearning for the Geula. I want to just share with you mamish dvarim pshutim, no chidushim, very simple words. You know, we say in davening one basic phrase: Ki lishuascha kivinu kal hayam. Ribbono shel Olam, we await the Yeshua, we await Mashiach, we await the Geula the entire day. Okay, that's a heavy statement. That means we're articulating, we're saying to Hashem, we're committing ourselves. And if you tell this in front of the Ribbono shel Olam, you know, you better mean what you say. We say we're waiting for Mashiach the whole day. So the first question we have to ask is that true? Are we actually awaiting Mashiach the whole day? What does that even mean? I mean, we're learning, we're davening, we're doing mitzvahs. What exactly does it mean we're awaiting Mashiach all day? So I want to share with you one very interesting chiddush. I hope after I share it, you say it's not a chiddush, because it's not intended to be a chiddush, just something that requires a little bit of focus. You know, Rava says in the Gemara on Shabbos that after 120, there are 6 big questions you have to answer. 6 main questions. Surprisingly, they're not going to ask, did you keep Shabbos? That's not one of the questions. Obviously, we have to keep Shabbos. Obviously, we're accountable for keeping Shabbos. But it's still not one of the big 6 questions. 6 questions are, did you set time to learn? Did you try to establish a family? Were you honest in business? 3 of the questions involve learning. Setting times to learn, learning in depth, extrapolating based upon what you learned. One of the big 6 are tzipisa l'Yeshua. Did you actively await the coming? They're not asking, did you put on tefillin? They're not asking you, did you daven with the minyan? Obviously, we have to do all of the above, and we are accountable. But none of those are one of the 6 big questions. But one of them is, did you await the coming of Mashiach? So one question we're entitled to ask is, if this is one of the 6 basic things in Judaism, you would expect it to be somewhere in the Torah, that it says, you're required to await the coming of Mashiach. So the only thing is, you know, you could open up Sefer Bereshis, Sefer Shemai, Sefer Vayikra, you could open up Chamisha Torah. It doesn't actually say anywhere that you need to await the coming of Mashiach. So where did Rava get this from? Rava's an Amoira. He's not a Navi. Okay, there's a very important question. You know, even if he were a Navi, even if Rava was a Navi, we'd be entitled to ask, if it's not in the Chumash, then this Navi has no right to say we're responsible to do it, because the Gemara Megillah says, Ein Navi Rashai L'chadesh Davar. Navi can't be Mechadesh something. Certainly Rava can't be Mechadesh an obligation. So it has to be somewhere in Chamisha Torah that there's an obligation to wait to come Mashiach. And then where did Rava get that it's so fundamental? It's one of the 6 big questions. You don't mean Rav Sadia going, you mean the smak. Yes.
It's another samach.
Yeah. Okay, so there's a smak. Sefer Mitzvahs Katan. Yeah, very good. Rabbi Yitzchak of Korbeil. Yeah, 1280. The smak says that the very first mitzvah in the Torah and the very first communication of the Almighty to Knesset Yisrael, what did Hashem say? Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher hotzeisicha me'eretz Mitzrayim. Says the smak in the very first mitzvah. What is the Ribbono shel Olam telling Klal Yisrael? He's saying, I am the Lord who took you out of Egypt, and therefore, just like I took you out of Mitzrayim, I'm going to take you out of Hancock Park. That's a smak. Just like I took you out of Mitzrayim, I'm going to take you out of America. Like, huh? That's not what the words say. The words say, Anoichi Hashem Elokecha asher hotzeiseich mi'atzam. Now how do you read into those words just like? Where does the just like come from? This is a Rishon, and he's saying that Rava's Chiddush is the simple reading of a pasuk in Chumash. How do you read those words into the pasuk? So recently, I was in Zurich. I was in the Yeki Shul in Zurich. Somebody brought me a copy of the Smak in the Shul. And why? Because on the bottom of the Smak, there's a perush on the Smak called Smak Zurich. Interesting. What is a Smak Zurich? So Reb Eli showed me, because he knows I like to quote Rav Chida. I usually say Chida. But Eli showed me, no, you can't say Chida. I still say Chida, but, I mean, some say you're supposed to say Rav Chida. Yeah, Rav Chida. Chida says in Shem HaGdolim, what's the Smak? What is the Smak? Smak was written by Rabbi Yitzchak of Korbel. He wanted the Smak to be the official halachic text of every single community in the whole world. So he sent a copy of a sefer to every community. The only thing is, books cost money. So books cost money. So he said, every kehillah should pay him for the book.
Nice.
I'm working on that. I'm going to be, I'm working on that. I got a big kick. I like to promote my books. So I got a big kick. I found an ad in the newspaper that Reb Shlomo Gansfried put in when he wrote the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch. By the way, I never knew this. Everybody knows that Shulchan Aruch, the Beis Yosef, his principle is 2 out of 3. The Rif, the Rush, and the Rambam, he takes 2 out of 3. That's why it's a predominantly Sephardic work, because the Rambam and the Rif are almost identical. There are only a few differences between them. There are not many differences. And so of course it's going to be Sephardic, because 2 out of 3 are Sephardim. The Kitzur Shulchan Aruch also has a methodology. I only saw this maybe a week ago. He took 3 achronim. He took the Chaye Adam, he took the Derech Chaim of the Nesivos, he took the Shulchan Aruch Harav, and he takes 2 out of 3. I don't know. You learn Kitzur your whole life. They teach it to you in elementary school. It's 2 out of 3. Anyway, so he put an ad in the paper. If anybody buys 9 of his books, you get a 10th for free. Nice. If anybody buys 90 of his books, you get 10 free. Okay, so I like that. Got to move the books. Anyway, the Smak sent his sefer to all the communities throughout the world, but in each community they had different minhagim and different customs and different psakim. So in each community they wrote on the bottom of the Smak their hagois on the Smak. So there's a Rishon in Zurich who wrote a perush on the Smak, and it's called Smak Zurich. Okay, when we were in Zurich, they told us they found the Smak Zurich's Beis Medrash. He was a Rishon who lived in the 13th century. So we went there. We went to the Smak Zurich's Beis Medrash. We went to his house. He writes on the first mitzvah of the Smak, there's a very simple way that the Smak was able to derive this understanding of Anochi Hashem Elokecha. Why? Because this is one of the Aseret HaDibros. So Rebbeinu Shalom is introducing himself to Klal Yisrael, saying, Shalom Aleichem. Okay, you know what the first thing you need to do is? The first thing is, Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher hotzeisecha me'eretz Mitzrayim. I am the Lord who took you out of Egypt. Yeah, okay. What are we supposed to do? What do we do about that? What do you want from our lives? What is the Rebbeinu Shalom telling Klal Yisrael in the very first communication with Anochi Hashem Elokecha asher hotzeisecha me'eretz Mitzrayim? Must be the Rebbeinu Shalom is demanding something in Anochi Hashem. What's he saying? He's saying, just like I took you out of Mitzrayim, you need to believe and anticipate the coming of the Geula. That is the simple meaning of the pasuk Anochi Hashem. So in other words, anticipating the coming of Mashiach, it's not a D'Rabbanan. It's not a minhag. It's more than a D'Oraisa. It's the first thing Rebbeinu Shalom said to Klal Yisrael was B'mitzapeh Yeshua. Those were the first words that Hashem communicated to the Jewish people according to the Smak. Now, what does the fact that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim have to do with Hashem taking us out of Hancock Park. What's Hancock Park and what's La Brea? Just educate me. Same neighborhood, different neighborhood?
A few $1 million up.
It's a different.
Higher taxes.
Higher taxes. Okay, fine.
$5 million real estate.
There you go.
Real estate.
So Rabbeinu Bechaye, in at least 6 places, says a very interesting lashon. Rabbeinu Bechaye says, "Kol hanaviyim misnaveim signoi nechor." All the neviim, they prophesy in the same vein that the Geula ha'asida will parallel Yetzias Mitzrayim perfectly. In other words, Yetzias Mitzrayim was the precursor, the pre-enactment, the paradigm of the future redemption. Rabbeinu Bechaye explains in many places how whatever happened in Mitzrayim was just the dress rehearsal of sorts for the ultimate Geula. So, for example, Rabbeinu Bechaye says Moshe split the sea. Rabbeinu Bechaye says La'aseh the sea will split and we'll go into Eretz Yisrael. Moshe took us through Membeis Masois, so too we're going to go through Membeis Masois. Rabbeinu Bechaye says there were 3 dates given as to the redemption from Mitzrayim: 210, 400, 430. Nobody could reconcile them until the day it happened, and they figured out 210 in Mitzrayim, 400 from the birth of Yitzchak, 430 from the bris ben Abasarim. Likewise, Rabbeinu Bechaye says if you look in Sefer Daniel, 3 different dates are given. We have no idea how to reconcile it until the great day will come. We'll know 1375 is this meaning, and we'll be able to reconcile all the 3 dates. The basic idea is Yetzias Mitzrayim was the Masei Avos, Siman Labanim, for the Geula Ha'asida. So I'd like to share with you something very simple, but it's a Chidush Noira. It's a life-changing Chidush. It's so pashut that I never saw anyone who said it, probably because it's so simple. Okay? But it's a life-altering Chidush. And that is, if that means part of believing Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim is that He's going to bring the Geula. So let's just review the most famous comments of the Ramban al Torah. The Ramban at the end of Parshas Bo famously writes, why do we have so many mitzvahs that are Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim? We wear tzitzis, Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim, right? Moshe Darshan says that Tcheles is Tichla, Makas B'chayros. We put on tefillin, Lamantia, Taras Hashem B'ficha, Kibiyar Chazaka, Yitziach Hashem Me'eretz Mitzrayim. Tzitzis, tefillin, mezuzah. The purpose of mezuzah is to remember Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. Which, by the way, here's another pet peeve. Everyone's busy kissing the mezuzah. Stop kissing the mezuzah already. What are you kissing the mezuzah? Where'd you get that from? Where'd you get that from? Another parsha sheet? What about the mitzvah da'iraisa of mezuzah, which is to think about what it says in the mezuzah? The Rambam says you have to think what it's... A guy who kisses the mezuzah and doesn't think what it says in the mezuzah, that's like kissing tefillin and not putting it on. Imagine a guy went to shul in the morning. He took out his tefillin. He shuckled. He kissed them. You know, some people really have the kiss down. They like kiss the top and the bottom like 3 times each. Okay, very nice. But what if you didn't put it on? That would be silly. So to kiss the mezuzah and not to think what it says is just silly. So the purpose of that means every doorway you walk through, there's a da'iraisa. That's the basic da'iraisa mezuzah, is to think about Yetzias Mitzrayim. Then you make Kiddush Friday night. You say, Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim. But you still might forget. So Hashem says, 7 days a year, no bread, no macaroni. You're going to eat matzah because you might forget I took you out of Mitzrayim. And you still might forget. So another 7 days you go outside and you sit in the sukkah. I mean, how many mitzvahs need to be Zecher Yetzias Mitzrayim? So Ramban famously says that the basic principles of Judaism were really only authenticated historically when Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim. When Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, He demonstrated His Metzius. He demonstrated His Hashgacha. He demonstrated His Yediyah, that Hashem knows, that Hashem's Yecholes is infinite, that Hashem communicates with a Navi because Hashem told Moshe when it's going to happen. Then all the tenets of Yiddishkeit were authenticated with Yetzias Mitzrayim, but never again did Hashem authenticate it like that. So Hashem therefore says, never forget the events of Yetzias Mitzrayim. You're going to wear a 4-cornered garment, and you're going to put it on every doorway you walk through, and you're going to recite it Friday night, and you're going to remember it 7 days on Pesach, and you're going to remember it 7 days on Sukkot, and you're going to recite it in the morning and the evening, so you never forget all the tenets of Judaism. So I just want to share with you one simple idea. According to the Smak, that part and parcel of remembering that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim is Hashem took Mitzrayim, and therefore He's going to take us out of LA. That's the mitzvah, right? According to the Smak. Part of Zecher L'Yitzias Mitzrayim is the first mitzvah in the Torah of Tzipisa L'Yeshua. That means that every mitzvah we do, which is Zecher L'Yitzias Mitzrayim, is an opportunity to be Mitzapa L'Yeshua. Which means that, let's say you walk into your house one day. Are you the kind of guy that goes in through the door? You're a door, or you go in through the window? Right? In LA, most people go through doors. That means going through your door is an opportunity to be Mitzapa L'Yeshua. And then going into the kitchen is an opportunity to be Mitzapa L'Yeshua. And all the 12 doorways you've gone through in the last 45 seconds are a dozen opportunities to be Mitzapa L'Yeshua. And when you make Kiddush Friday night and you say Zecher L'Yitzias Mitzrayim, you tell your family, you know what we're doing now? We're reciting Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, and as a mishpacha, we are collectively anticipating the coming of Mashiach. Who says that? The Smak. Which mitzvah is it? The first mitzvah in the Torah. And when you put on tefillin, and you think, I'm putting on tefillin to remember Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim, and as an expression of yearning for the coming of the Geula. And when you say in Kriya Shema, Ani Hashem Elokeichem, Asher Hotzisi Eschem Me'eretz Mitzrayim, you're reciting your belief that Hashem took us out of Mitzrayim and your anticipation of the coming of Yeshua. You think it's hyperbole that we say and we commit, we say, Ki Lishuascha Kivinu Kol Hayom. When exactly the whole day are we awaiting the Yeshua? The answer is the whole day of the whole day. Throughout the day. From the beginning from the morning till we go to sleep. We look at our tzitzis, we put on our tefillin, we say the Kriya Shema, we make Kiddush, we walk through doors, and the entire day we're awaiting the coming of the Geula. Okay, one more idea. You know, the Gemara says in Rosh Hashanah, Tzion hi doiresh ein la. It's a pasuk in the Nevi'im. Tzion hi, she is Tzion, nobody seeks her out. What does the Gemara say? Miklal deboi drisha. From here we see, you got to seek her out. You have to be doiresh Tzion. You have to be doiresh Tzion, right? Like in Zmiros we'll say, Vehu yidraish li Tzion. What exactly does it mean to be doiresh Tzion? I always wondered about that. We have to be doiresh Tzion, so what do you have to do? You go to the Harabayas, you're not allowed to go there. You know, according to halacha, you can't go there. We're tameh. In many spots, there's a very serious transgression. So what exactly do you have to be doiresh Tzion? So I've been looking around to try to figure this out. The Malbim says on the pasuk, L'shichnoi sidrishu ubasa shama, yeah? So Malbim says, what do you mean l'shichnai sidrashu? David HaMelech was supposed to be doiresh the makom, but Hashem told David that the Navi would let him know where to make the Beis HaMikdash. So what does David need to do? So the Malbim says that even though David was going to be given instructions from the Navi where to build the Beis HaMikdash, he still was required to be doiresh something on his own. It required some, so to speak, intervention on his own, and then the Navi would tell him. But it's not clear what exactly he's supposed to do. Until I saw a chiddush from Reb Chaim Kanievsky in a very, unusual source. This does not appear in any sefer Reb Chaim Kanievsky wrote. It only appears in one sefer. In the art scroll Zmiros of Reb Chaim Kanievsky. I asked the guy who put it together, I said, you need to make this in Lashon Kodesh. This is not available anywhere. Reb Chaim Kanievsky says, in the Zmiros, V'hu yidroish l'tzion, says Reb Chaim, and I think actually this also appears in this week's parsha. Reb Chaim says, how does Targum translate doiresh? Throughout the Chumash, let's say in Bereshis, Anoichi Edroish Me'imai, Shoifech Dam Ha'adam Ba'adam Dama Yishafech. Anoichi Edroshenu. Or in this week's parsha also uses the lashon of Jerisha. Targum consistently translates the word doiresh or edroish as etva, to be toiveya. So Reb Chaim Kanievsky says, when the Gemara tells us, Tzion hi doirish ein la, meklal debai drisha, debai drisha means you need to be toiveya it. Meaning, there are things we daven for, we're toiveya. You know, let's say somebody needs a refuah. They ask Hashem, they don't just say, Ribbon Hashem, I was just wondering, if it's a good time for you, just wondering, maybe you could bring a refuah to Pliny, or could you help me out? If there's something you need, you're toiveh, you ask it, you so to speak demand it. When it's something you don't really need, so then, then it's like, the way we say, v'la malshinim, it's not with so much urgency. You ever see a guy, take out a list, guy take out a long list and start crying, and you wonder, like, where's he up to? He's up to v'la malshinim. Like, who exactly are these la malshinim that he's davening so urgently that mehira sa'akeru sa'shaber? The answer is that most people don't have that much kavanah for v'la malshinim, or, I don't think ala tzadikim v'ala chasiyah hashiva shevtenu is not most people's go-to spot. But Shema Koleinu or Rifa'inu, people daven with a sense of urgency. Says Reb Chaim, when the Gemara says Tzion hi doiresh ein la meklal debai drisha, that the mitzvah of tzipiyasa liyeshua requires teviyah. You can't ask Hashem, Rebbeinu Hashem, I was just wondering, after I asked you for the 50 things that I feel I really need, I was just wondering if it's a good time for you, you could bring Mashiach. If not, never mind, make believe I never asked. Of all the things we ask for, we need to ask with the most urgency, with the greatest, so to speak, claim. If you even look carefully at the simple words of the tefillah, let's say, V'Yushalayim Ircha. V'Yushalayim Ircha Barachim Tashuv V'Sishkoin B'Soicha Ka'asher Dibarta. That's a pretty bold statement. That's pretty demanding. Imagine you go to somebody, you say, could I have it? You gave me your word. I mean, yeah, you told me you're going to do it. Do we ever say to Hashem about anything, could you do this? You said you would. I mean, think about it. It's pretty audacious to use that expression, kasher dibarta. So Chaim says that when it comes to davening for the Geula, you need to be toiveya. It means that we have to have a sense of urgency. We have to set a sense of something we really need. So I saw in the Chafetz Chaim on the Siddur, Chafetz Chaim, there's a sefer, Chafetz Chaim al Siddur, he says the same thing as Reb Chaim Kanievsky, that when it comes to davening for the Geula, you have to be toiveya it. If you're not toiveya it, it's not happening. So Avi, I was together with Avi a couple months ago. We went to Belarus.
Nice.
Yes, you should have come.
5-star. I missed that one.
I don't know about 5-star. But we went to Lithuania. We went to Lithuania. Back in the day, if you wanted to go to Belarus, so you just you get an app, and you apply for a visa, and you go. Not anymore. Now you want to go to Belarus, you got to go down to the Belarus embassy in Washington. They need to issue you a special visa. They stamp your passport, and lenetzach netzachim, your passport is now, double the weight that it used to be, with like this special Belarusian, I don't know if that's a word, visa that's imprinted. So we went to Lithuania, and then to get into Belarus, now you can't drive there. You have to take a Belarus commissioned bus after Chatzois Halayla, right? We come, all of a sudden I'm preparing whatever I was going to say at the kever. I look up, there's a soldier staring me in the face. He has a cap. He's still wearing the cap from, I think, 1948. He looks like a flashback from 7 years ago, shining this glaring flashlight in my eye. Passport, I'm like shaking. We get off the bus. They have dogs sniffing you to get from Lithuania to Belarus. They have dogs sniffing you to get into Belarus. And we went to the Chafetz Chaim's kever. And on the Chafetz Chaim's kever is a list of all the Sfarim the Chafetz Chaim wrote. Starting with Sefer Chafetz Chaim, followed by Mishnah Berurah, followed by Shmiras HaLashon, then Avas Chesed, and Machane Yisrael. And it goes through all the Sfarim of the Chafetz Chaim. And I'm looking, of course, for Tzipisa Liyeshua. It ain't there. It's not there. And of course, there's an empty space on the kever of the Chafetz Chaim. Maybe we could add it. I'm trying to get a hold of the Chafetz Chaim's family. Maybe they could add Tzipis Yeshua. But I was a little bit wondering, why is Tzipis Yeshua not on the cover of the Chafetz Chaim? Turns out, trying to figure out, when did the Chafetz Chaim publish Sefer Tzipis Yeshua? You know about this? The answer is never. He never published. He was not able to publish the Sefer Tzipis Yeshua because of censorship. What was the censorship issue? It's interesting, when Chafetz Chaim came to publish Sefer Chafetz Chaim, he met up with a Maskell, who was the head of the Russian censorship, a guy by the name of Joshua Steinberg. And Steinberg was the son-in-law of the father of all the Maskilim in Vilna, a guy by the name of Adam HaKohen Levinson. Adam HaKohen Levinson had been trying to stalk the Chafetz Chaim since the time the Chafetz Chaim was a young boy in Vilna. Levinson was one of the heads of the seminar in Berlin, and Levinson was trying to stalk the Chafetz Chaim. He knew he was a bride kid, he knew he was an orphan, and he would strike him up in conversation, and he would try to persuade the Chafetz Chaim to go to the seminar. And one time, a simple water carrier in Vilna came over to the Chafetz Chaim. He said, "What are you talking to this guy for? He's not bikoiris. He's oichel nevelos utrefos. Don't you understand? He's choyte yomachti. Don't talk to him." Now, Chafetz Chaim could have said, "I'm not Makabel Lashon Hara, I'm the Chafetz Chaim." But he didn't do that. He ran out of Vilna, he never came back. Chafetz Chaim would say, this simple water carrier saved his life. If not for the water carrier, there would never be a Mishnah Berurah, there wouldn't be a Sefer Chafetz Chaim, and all of his contributions never would have been. So when we were in Vilna, remember this? Show them the picture. He has a picture? There's a bronze-plated statue of the water carrier of Vilna. Nobody knows which water carrier this was, but we took a moment, we paid tribute to that water carrier who saved the life of the Chafetz Chaim. Anyway, Levinson had a son-in-law. Levinson's son-in-law was Joshua Steinberg. Joshua Steinberg was the censor on Sefer Chafetz Chaim. When Steinberg realized that this man, the Chafetz Chaim, was the kid who his father-in-law tried to ensnare many, many years ago, he had Chalishas Hadas. He started to insult the Chafetz Chaim. And they got into a whole disagreement. And I think one of the great ironies in history is the fact that this guy Steinberg, against his will, Bal Karchai, ended up having to give the stamp of approval to Sefer Chafetz Chaim. He was the censor of Sefer Chafetz. But just to give you a picture, at one point in the conversation, Chafetz Chaim said the expression, Goyim lahavdil. And Steinberg went berserk. He said, lahavdil? We don't use that expression, lahavdil. All of mankind, we're all equal. There's no havdalah. So the Chafetz Chaim said about Steinberg, Imein das havdalah minayin. In other words, of course there's no havdalah. Imein das, if you don't have Torah, how could you make havdalah? You should know that the Chafetz Chaim put a curse on Levinson. Even though, I'll tell you a little secret, our Rosh Yeshiva, Henoch Leibowitz, said he was a great nephew of the Chafetz Chaim. That his father told him that the Chafetz Chaim did not like when people spoke Lashon Hara about the Zionists, specifically Herzl. Chafetz Chaim said it's Lashon Hara. He said he's a Tinuk Shenishba, he wasn't given a Jewish education. But Levinson, the Chafetz Chaim put a curse on Levinson, that he should have no ninvin, he should have no Jewish progeny. And what happened? Levinson's only son died young, and Steinberg, the son-in-law, and Levinson's daughter had no Jewish descendants. So, they asked Reb Chaim Kanievsky, could you put a klala on a Jew? Reb Chaim said, in general, not. But a mesis, umediach, has a different status, as we know what the Chafetz Chaim said about Levinson. So anyway, what's interesting is, in 1929, Chafetz Chaim's son-in-law, you know who the Chafetz Chaim's son-in-law was? One of the son-in-laws were Aaron HaKohen. He moved to Yerushalayim. He later moved to Bnei Brak. And in 1929, he published Tzipis Yeshua, and he writes on the title page, the first time the Sefer was published, because my father-in-law was not able to publish it because of censorship. Now you can imagine, if you can't say the word lahavdil, then there's no way you could publish a book that one day Hashem's going to take the Jewish people back to Eretz Yisrael. So that never passed censorship. And he says he published it for the first time. Now the truth is, Chafetz Chaim had a Talmud. His name was Yehuda Meir Jacobson, was a rabbi in Boston who published Tzipisa Yeshua with a Yiddish translation in 1921. And that was really the first time it was published as a separate sefer. Did the Chafetz Chaim ever publish it? He had to publish it as an insert to a newspaper. Which newspaper? There was a Jewish newspaper that existed for 5 years, from 1900 to 1905. It was published in Paltava. It's called Hapeles. Chafetz Chaim couldn't get it into that. The editor of Hapeles then published a journal between 1910 and 1915 called Hamodia. No relation to Hamodia. Okay? And in this newspaper, there was a magazine. You know, it's like the Yated. You know the Yated magazine? They have the Yated over here in LA. You get it? Sometimes.
Last week.
You have
Leftovers.
yeah? So Chafetz Chaim had to publish Tzipisa Yeshua as an insert, as a magazine in the paper Hamodia in 1913. But it was not published as a sefer until the 20s. In any event, what does this have to do with the Marsha about Egla Arufa? They asked the Chafetz Chaim, you know, what's taking so long? Chafetz Chaim says, the only thing is, people don't want it. They don't want it. If we would really want it, it would come. And the Chafetz Chaim would tell the story about the Beis Halevi. The Beis Halevi, at the end of his life, he retired. And he was going to call it a day. He was going to sit and learn. And all of a sudden, he gets a knock on the door. And an emissary came on behalf of the city of Brisk. And they wanted the Beis Halevi to be the Rav. So the Beis Halevi, by the way, this story is published in Sefer Chafetz Chaim al Torah. By the way, same thing with stories. Don't tell me stories. Don't tell me stories you heard. I want to know where it says the story. You could tell me, I saw it in the Parsha sheet in Shul, and then I know I won't believe it. But I need to know where it says it, okay?
The jet ski is
No, that happened. Yeah. No, because you know the Gemara says in Psachim. The Gemara says in Psachim, Kol ma she'amar lecha Baal Habayis aseh, chutz mitzeh. You know, whatever the Baal Habayis says goes, unless he tells you to leave, because then you don't have to listen. He's not the Baal Habayis anymore. But the Shlach Hadosh says that, you know, Acher heard a baskol. Acher heard the baskol cry out, Shuvu banim shoivavim chutz me'acher. So Acher said, I can't do tshuva, but he didn't know. God's the Baal Habayis. Whatever God says, you listen to. Kol ma she'amar lecha Baal Habayis aseh. But when God says you can't do tshuva, you don't listen to him, because there is no chutz. Anyone could do tshuva. Anyway, they told the Beis Halevi, what do you mean you're retiring? There are 25,000 Jews in Brisk who are waiting for you to put on the kapata and be the Rav. So the Beis Halevi says, there are 25,000 Jews waiting for me. I can't make them wait. He put his kapota back on and he took the job. Says the Chafetz Chaim, if there would be 25,000 Jews waiting for the Mashiach, and even less, Chafetz Chaim always brings a Zohar HaKadosh. If you would have even a minion of Jews waiting, if you would have even a minion of Jews, then Mashiach would come. Then I think we would activate the principle, Ritzoin Yireav Yaaseh. But you need to do something to show the Rebbeinu Shalom what your Ratzain is. In Chodesh Elul, even though we're very focused on Shuva, you know, the Ramchal wrote a book of Tfilos. You ever see? The Tfilos of the Ramchal. In Tfilah 158, the Ramchal says, Rebbeinu Shalom, bring Mashiach. And if you say, what do you mean? Ein Yisrael Negalim Ela B'Tshuva? Says Ramchal, being mitzapeh liyeshua is a form of tshuva. That's good enough. That's good enough. So part of the avoid of Elul, part of the avoid of tshuva, is being mitzapeh liyeshua, but not just showing Hashem what your ratzain is, doing something, taking advantage of simple opportunities, looking at a mezuzah, looking at your tefillin, looking at your tzitzis, when you make Kiddush, these are the most basic mitzvahs in Yiddishkeit, and they're gold mines of opportunity. Mamish to be mekayim dvarim ha'imdim berumay shalaylam, and we forget about it. We mamish forget about it. So Be'ezus Hashem, I really appreciate being together with such a chashuva olam, and nice to see so many dear friends. And I wish you all shefa bracha v'atzlacha, ksiv chsima toiva. Thank you very much. Shkayach.